Catch a boat to England, baby, maybe to Spain. Wherever I have gone, wherever I've been and gone, wherever I have gone, the blues are all the same.
I keep thinking about how cool it would be if I were a musician, if I were a person who could create these aesthetics that I have in my mind and then put them in a rhythmic and musical context. But the more I think about it, the more I realize my brain doesn't really have the ability to do those things, or isn't really a brain that is made to do these things, you know. You can learn anything if you just try hard enough. If you just try hard enough to be self-aware and to learn how to practice and to continue to practice, you can learn those things. It's just a matter of how fun it is for you or how much you want to do the thing on whether or not you continue long enough to eventually get good. The thing about music is that my mindset and the way that I see the world, the way I think about things is just so fundamentally different than that of a musician. I don't hear rhythm the same way as other people. I look at FL Studio and I don't understand what's going on. I look at guitar lessons, and I've tried to learn the guitar before, and it was just so confusing to me. I just didn't understand a single thing about it. I didn't understand any of the stuff that was going on, and I'm sure I would have if I tried hard enough and if I continued to do so for long enough, but it would have taken me much longer than it did for anybody else who just had a sort of natural inclination to do those things. I have a natural inclination to talk, I think. I go on camera and I talk all the time. Now, I obviously didn't start out very good. If you look through most of my old videos, they are terrible. But I had the drive to do so. I had the mindset to do so. I was the person who was going to go up to that camera and I was going to speak to it because that's how I express myself. That's how I look at the world. And so when I look at things in this context and I compare vlogging to music, I quickly realize that music is a futile endeavor because it's not something that I enjoy, and it's not something that me as a person can connect to on a fundamental level. I connect to speaking on a fundamental level. I am a performer. I go up to the camera and I express myself. I express these ideas that I have through words. I don't do that with music. I don't express feelings through music. The primary reason that I want to do music is just because I have weird or interesting aesthetics in my head that I want to get across. And I have these ideas, but having an idea is very different from action. The act of creating something and the drive to want to create something are very different things, because in most cases, the drive to want to create something comes from consuming the thing. It comes from enjoying the thing that you're consuming. But there's a difference in enjoying that thing and enjoying the process of creating the thing. I enjoy the process of creating vlogs, and I just happen to get into vlogs because I also enjoy watching them. But I wouldn't continue for as long as I have if I did not enjoy that process as much as I do, if I didn't have a mindset that just sort of predisposes me to wanting to talk. And there are various environmental factors that led me to that. You know, there were many things, I believe, in my life that led me to being a talker, and then in some ways I just always have been this way. I just always have been a fairly talkative person. Even in my youngest years, I mean, I was someone who started talking before the normal age that you do, before the normal time that you do. I started speaking early, and my sister did the exact same thing. Like, doctors were perplexed by the fact that she had started speaking so early and with as much technical fidelity as she had. Like, it wasn't a normal thing for her to speak that early and that well. She just picked up on it, and I did the exact same thing. I guess it's a genetic thing, I don't know. It's just something that sort of happened to me, and I believe through that, through that genetic predisposition to sort of random chance of speaking earlier, I developed a fascination with it, and I just developed a habit of finding it fun, and there were environmental factors that also led to that are far too complicated to get into here, but they were there, and I understand that they were there. And so when you take all these factors together and you really understand them, it makes perfect sense why I'm up here talking to you, audience, right now. But making music makes zero sense for me to do. It doesn't seem like something I would do at all. It's something that when I listen to music, I don't even properly get the rhythm. Rhythm is a basic thing. It's a basic concept, and I don't even properly understand that. I don't even properly interpret that when it's put in my face when I listen to a song. I don't even tap my foot correctly. So, like, these things are very obvious indicators that I have, a sort of fundamental dissonance with music, and that's okay. I don't need to be a musician. I don't need to express these things that are in my mind. Those things can just sort of be left by the wayside in my own head and can continue to be ideas that ruminate but don't really go anywhere. I have many ideas like that. Many people do. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with never getting to the ideas that you wanted to do. And I've come to accept this. I didn't used to accept this at all. I used to be someone who would want to do every single thing. I want to be a programmer, I want to be a musician, I want to speak every language. And nowadays, I more so just want to focus on the things that I'm good at and the things that I'm really passionate about. I want to hone those skills to my best abilities, and I want to show that I can do those things the best that I possibly can. And I believe getting to music, getting to all these different things that don't really work for me or aren't really for me, aren't really my thing, just muddy that entire process because I'm focusing on multiple things at once instead of just focusing on the couple things that I'm good at. And, as I said, taking a variable that you don't have that fundamental predisposition towards and then adding that to the mix only makes the mix more complicated. It only makes it worse. And vlogging like this right now, or writing like I tend to, are things that I believe, are good at to a certain extent. I'm not like good at them, but I'm better at them than anything else that I do. And when I look at those things, they're already complicated enough to do. Those are the things that I would say, natural at. And those are already very hard to do. Those take a lot of time to do. Adding more things onto that just makes that picture more complicated, and it makes the process of getting good at all of those things take even longer. If you could work on one thing all day instead of working on a bunch of things throughout that one day, you're going to get way more progress in the one thing. And I would much rather have that. I would much rather be advanced in one thing than I would be kind of good at a lot of things. That's why they call it the jack of all trades, the master of none. And that's why that statement has a negative connotation, because you can't really get good in the world. You can't really have an effect in the world if you just do a bunch of stuff but do none of them particularly well. You don't have an effect. You don't do anything that will make you remembered or noticed. You just do a lot of stuff, and maybe you're noticed for the fact that you do a lot of stuff. But simply being noticed for that has no value. People are going to look at you and say, wow, you're ambitious, and then they're going to move on. Because that ambition was misplaced. It was put into all these different hats, but not one particular one that you were good at and predisposed towards to really master. And so you end up not being particularly remembered for anything because you're trying to do so many things at once. And I believe this is a very risky trap to fall into. It's a trap that I almost fell into. I could have downloaded FL Studio, could have started FL Studio right now if I wanted to. But music is not something that I want enough. It's not something that I have a big enough desire to do to actively pursue that, and so I don't. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm perfectly fine enjoying music as a listener. I would much rather focus on the mediums that I get a lot of enjoyment out of creating, and that I believe I can have a serious impact on people's lives through creating in those mediums. And I believe honing that craft to my best abilities is going to get me to that place further and more easy than paying attention to a bunch of different things at once and trying to be good at all of them, but only being sort of good at a few of them, you know? So that's sort of where my head is. That's why I'm never going to make music. That's why I'm never going to go full deep into music, because it's just something that I have a fundamental problem with. It's something that I am not meant for. People like my boyfriend, people like Weeb Trash Productions, they're music guys. He grew up on music. Music was always something he was passionate about. And I mean, I jammed out to Portishead when I was a little kid. I listened to Danzig and Black Sabbath and stuff. You know, kind of off-kilter strange things in comparison to what most kids would have been listening to, but that's because my dad exposed me to them. You know, Ween, stuff like that. But he has always had a deep obsession with music. He's always been into music on the deepest possible level, and I was just never there. I never really recognized music in that way. I never really looked at music and thought, wow, this is something I understand, or I can just see these elements naturally. I don't even need to think about it. It's something that I need to think very hard about, and even when I do, I don't fully understand it, you know? And so it's just a difference in mindsets. It's just a difference in interests and how those mindsets play into each other and affect things. And I just happen to be of the upbringing and of the, you know, the fucking lottery show of, you know, maybe you're gonna get this, maybe you're gonna get that in terms of life, that has led me to not being a music person, to being someone who isn't particularly interested in these things. And I'm not trying to be defeatist. Like, I think if I worked on it for long enough, and if I just tried hard enough, I could do the thing. I'm not saying that. That is not my point. I think you can do that with anything, but I don't want to. And the reason I don't want to is because I have these big challenges. Is that a bit weak-willed? Yes. But the reason why I'm being weak-willed in this specific context is because it's not something I'm going to enjoy. I've tried to enjoy it. I've tried to be interested in it. It's just not something I'm very into, and I have no large drive to do so. And I don't think I should be forced to do something that I don't have a drive to do, that I don't enjoy doing. And so why would I do that? Why would I go through that process? There's literally no reason for me to do so other than to make my life worse and to distract from the things that I actually do care about.